Shelby OAKS is an ambitious independent horror movie where the ambition in question sometimes appears to have been synthesizing the last decade or so of post-millennial indie horror genre tropes into one story and coming out with either some kind of unified theory of the form or maybe just blending it all down into something that can be more easily sorted, turning its own influences into a slurry that can be more coherently sifted through for the good pieces and risen above. Or, you know, young filmmakers maybe wanted to prove themselves in the industry. They could work in multiple different tones and styles all at once right out of the gate and did that. That can also frequently be the case. Either way, what we've got here is primarily a supernatural horror mystery thriller about a woman investigating the disappearance of her sister, a paranormal investigator, who was supposedly murdered along with her team in a mostly abandoned rural town, but whom she still believes is alive because the body was never recovered and because movie plot. Like I said, we're kind of doing all of the 21st century American horror movie things here, so the abandoned town also has a spooky forest and an abandoned prison and an abandoned amusement park that the girls both attended when they were younger. The backstory of the abandoned jail involves an imprisoned local killer, so there's parts that go all Mindhunter or Longlegs. There's early signals that the evil comings and goings are tied to occult practices and dark secrets involving the protagonist that have kind of a Conjuring or Insidious vibe. The Dead Paranormalists had a YouTube channel that have become the fixation of other channels since their deaths, so there's extended stretches where it incorporates elements of found footage and screen life filmmaking, although once it settles into here's what's actually going on for Act 3, the vibe is decidedly more similar to something like an Ari Aster movie, but if it were about people who work for a living. As it happens, that particular vibe and atmosphere is most of what makes Shelby OAKS an overall recommendable horror feature, along with an agreeable, snappy pace and a good cast that sells the material appropriately. When it's not doing the old video or watching someone watch the internet stuff, which, to be clear, is always harder to make look convincing or good than people think it's going to be, it's instead going for a stylish contrast between actual dark nightmare vibes and authentically barren middle American wasteland emptiness that really works. It's a well-shot, well-directed film, and that counts when the actual what's happening and where is this going stuff is actually pretty easy to clock if you've watched one other semi-recent film in the genre that's clearly influenced it. And I don't just mean that in the sense of, oh, there's evil dogs. Lots of other horror movies have had evil dogs. Or, oh, the stick symbols are a Blair Witch thing. Of the pile of stuff Blair Witch did not invent, that's definitely among them. I mean more big, broad sweep of plot business where once a handful of character backbeats in Act 1 clicked into place, I kind of started going, oh, okay, I know where we're going, and yeah, I was basically right. But that's not even really a criticism, it's an observation, because overall I think this works on a storytelling level. So this also got a big push from the distributor Neon, by the way, and I think in part because it was a big Kickstarter indie and the director is Chris Stuckman, who is a film critic who does a YouTube show, and just glancing at some of the coverage from when this was in theaters, it feels like that maybe flavored some of the responses people had to this, which I guess is to be expected if some of the characters in the movie are supposed to also be internet video people, but I don't know. Obviously, I know who Chris is. I don't think being a film critic counts against or for someone's credentials as a filmmaker, which is why I didn't bring it up in the review until right here, because people would be weird if I didn't mention it at all. But yeah, I know who made the movie. It doesn't affect what I think of the film, and I also don't think reviews of it need to be statement pieces on some overarching concept of YouTubers as filmmakers. But yeah, overall, I thought this was pretty good. Solidly spooky, very atmospheric. To be honest, I don't know if this part was intentional or not, but speaking only for myself, putting a bunch of the found footage, screen life DV stuff right up front ended up working because I kind of went, oh no, is this going to be the whole thing? Because I usually fucking hate this shit. So when it turned into a real movie that was much more atmospheric and had like actual cinematography, I was super on board. In any case, call this a 7 out of 10. I think this is worth checking out.